Allen Lund Company has new offices in Ogden, Utah and Indianapolis, Indiana. Check allenlund.com to reach them.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Reddick.
Electrifying heavy trucks involves a number of challenges, but what if you could charge the truck while you drive? Researchers at Purdue University are giving it a shot. We'll have information about the project. Towing has become big news in the trucking industry, but truck drivers can protect themselves against outrageous bills, and insurance can help. I'll talk with Trina Skywalker and Trista Roby of OOIDA's Truck Insurance Department. And finally, the dog days of summer are usually a quiet time on the spot market, and this year is no different. But that's about to change. Stephen Pettit of DAT has the latest numbers and upcoming events that could affect volumes and rates. But first, the news with Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. We begin with new details about the U.S. DOT's plan to use technology to improve roadway safety and efficiency. It's called the National V2X Deployment Plan. V2X stands for Vehicle to Everything, technology that allows vehicles to send and receive information in real time. The goal is for vehicles to communicate with other vehicles, drivers, pedestrians, and their surroundings. The U.S. DOT's non-binding roadmap sets certain goals for implementing V2X technology. During a news conference, Administrator of the Federal Highway Administration, Shaylin Batt, said the ultimate goal of the technology is reducing roadway deaths down to zero.
This is a wonderful plan that brings together private sector partners, state DOTs and cities, among other public sector partners, academia, to lay out the roadmap to say these are the deployments that will be needed. And this is not about pilot programs. This is not about trying to test out technology. This is proven technology that works. We know it works. We know it works in the field. We know that there are deployments out there right now today across the nation that are utilizing V2X technology. And thanks to the bipartisan infrastructure law, there is funding available to make this a reality.
There are currently no vehicles on the road that can communicate with other vehicles. Volvo has a vehicle-to-vehicle or V2V system that can alert other Volvo vehicles to slippery roads and other hazards. However, the cloud-based network cannot communicate with other manufacturers' vehicles. Truck platooning is another example of current V2V technology. During that press conference, Jennifer Homendy, chair of the National Transportation Safety Board, gave a number of examples where V2X technology could have prevented a crash, including this one.
3 years ago in Phoenix, Arizona, 4 people were killed and 11 more were injured when a commercial motor vehicle struck a queue of passenger vehicles at about 63 miles per hour. I could go on. In each case, we determined V2X technology could have prevented the crash. Today, the NTSB has 10 open safety recommendations to DOT related to V2X, focused on protecting all road users, in vehicles and outside vehicles, which has never been more critical as pedestrian deaths have soared across the U.S. since 2013. Our most recent recommendation from Mount Pleasant calls on DOT to take a leadership role to implement a plan for nationwide connected vehicle technology.
The U.S. DOT's V2X plan attempts to coordinate all aspects of the technology deployment to ensure all stakeholders are on the same page and equipped to perform their roles. By 2028, the DOT wants 20% of the national highway system to have V2X technology, with the top 75 metro areas having 25% of signalized intersection V2X capability. A trash collection company is asking the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration to exempt its drivers from some drug and alcohol clearinghouse requirements. Waste Management Holdings wants to remove the administrative burden of requalifying drivers every time they are reassigned to an affiliate carrier. Meanwhile, questions about FMCSA's Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse are likely to heat up in the coming weeks and months. Starting November 18th, state driver licensing agencies will be required to remove the commercial driving privileges of drivers in a prohibited status in the clearinghouse, something that will result in a CDL downgrade until the driver completes the return to duty process. The American Trucking Association's for-hire truck tonnage index ticked up last month after dipping in June. That's on a monthly basis. The index came in 0.3% higher in July, reversing the 1.8% decline recorded in June. However, July's figure is nearly a percentage point lower than it was a year earlier. ATA's chief economist Bob Costello said overall, July was not a strong month, but he added that we see continued evidence that the truck freight market is likely turning a corner, albeit slowly. Another member of Congress has signed on to support a bill that would guarantee truckers the basic right to use a restroom at shippers and receivers. Congresswoman Yadira Caraveo of Colorado is the 10th co-sponsor of H.R. 3869, otherwise known as the Trucker Bathroom Access Act. The bill is about as simple as it gets. It would not require any funding or any new facilities. It would simply require that shippers and receivers make their bathrooms available to truckers who are dropping off or loading up at their facilities. Here's what the bill's original sponsor, Representative Troy Nehls of Texas, told us when asked why he introduced this bill in the first place.
The idea, and I think, I think it's almost embarrassing. It is, as a member of Congress. I have to get in front of a committee and talk about, hey, we need to create a law to provide bathroom access to our truckers, with many of them women. Well, what the hell are you talking about? We got to get a bill to let somebody use a bathroom when they're delivering their goods and services? It makes no sense to me. It was actually embarrassing, quite honestly, to think that these truckers are going to have to go out there and find that fire hydrant or go out in somebody's yard or find a big tree. Hell, I don't know. But it's absolutely silly, and it's shameful that Congress has to intervene here and provide bathroom access for our truckers. What do you expect a woman to do? Now, come on, us boys, we can just go find that tree by the golf course, right? What does a woman do? What are you doing? What are we doing? So we got to be better about this. So we filed that legislation. I think we're going to get that passed. I want to see somebody argue the point. I want to see a member of Congress say, I can't support that. Oh, that would be fun. I want 5 minutes with them.
The bill is truly bipartisan in nature. Congresswoman Caraveo is the 5th Democrat to sign on, joining 5 Republicans. H.R. 3869 also has the support of the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. To get your representatives in Washington, D.C. on board, head to fightingfortruckers.com and click on the Key Trucking Legislation tab at the top of the page. A truck driver who pleaded guilty in connection with a deadly 2023 crash in Arizona has been sentenced. Danny Glenn Tyner was behind the wheel of a tractor-trailer on Interstate 10 near Chandler when he slammed into stopped traffic. 5 people were killed. Investigators found that Tyner was actively using TikTok at the time of the crash and going 68 in a 55-mile-per-hour zone. He was sentenced to more than 22 years in prison, 4.5 years for each count of negligent homicide. Love's Travel Stops has broken ground on 2 new electric vehicle charging stations in New York State. One's in Ripley, the other's in Waterloo. The locations will offer 2 dual-port Level 3 DC fast chargers with high power outputs. Love's now offers more than 100 chargers at 28 stores across 11 states. Love's plans to break ground on 4 charging stations in Pennsylvania and 4 in Kentucky by the end of this year. More will follow in 2025. And finally, an update to a story we brought to you earlier in the week. The mayoral candidate in Wyoming who vowed to legislate via an AI chatbot was not a hit with voters. Victor Miller lost his primary for mayor of Cheyenne on Tuesday. Miller said he would attend ceremonies and events, but that the AI bot named Vic would make decisions on legislation, vetoes, and any other issue that comes up. Of the 6 candidates on the ballot, Miller came in 4th with 327 votes. The top 2 finishers move on to the general election in November and presumably plan to make decisions the old-fashioned way. That's Landline Now News for today. I'm Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Scott. Next, we'll talk with 2 people involved in a project to charge electric trucks as they drive over the roads. I'll cover the ins and outs of towing and insurance with Trina Skywalker and Trista Roby of OOIDA's Truck Insurance Department, and we'll find out why the dog days of summer are quiet on the spot market from Stephen Pettit of DAT. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Every year, 28 million people are trafficked globally. The Your Roads, Their Freedom campaign seeks to raise awareness in the transport industry. Truck and bus drivers, be vigilant on the roads. If you see something suspicious, text 233-733 or be free.
Truckdown.com. Whenever you have a breakdown, you need Truckdown.com. 24/7 access to 40,000 verified heavy-duty repair vendors nationwide. Truckdown verified, vendor qualified. Truckdown.com.
Firestone tires are for more of everything, with more durability for more miles and more confidence in your fleet. Firestone's tested tires help fleets save with value where it matters most. Learn more at bridgestonenationalfleet.com/4moremiles.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
Landline Now, welcome back. There are a number of challenges associated with electrifying heavy trucks, from the increased weight and the lack of charging infrastructure to the time it takes to charge a single truck for long distances and more. But what if you could charge the truck while you drive? Researchers at Purdue University are giving it a shot with a truck provided by Cummins. To learn more about the project, I recently spoke with Steve McCarrick.
I'm a professor here at Purdue in electrical and computer engineering.
And John Cressy.
I lead a team at Cummins Corporate Research and Technology, and we're looking at next generation electrification technologies for battery electric and hybrid powertrains, and this includes charging systems.
We've got a lot of ground to cover, so let's get to it. I wanted to know about the origins of this project, which takes us back a few years to conversations surrounding something called dynamic wireless power transfer. Some have likened it to the way some of us charge our smartphones on a charging pad using magnetic fields. The technology at the center of this project, Pekarik says, is similar.
As you had indicated, the technology is there in terms of low power applications. So those with a cell phone, if you have a charging stand that's wireless, you're setting up magnetic fields from what we call a transmitter. It's actually time-varying magnetic fields. And within your phone, there's a receiver to accept energy, that magnetic energy. Here we're doing something very similar. Within the electrified roadways, you would place electrical conductors. You would then provide energy to them that sets up time-changing magnetic fields, and your receiver underneath the vehicle sees those and takes that energy. And our goal really is to send that energy to the wheels so that you don't have to charge your battery. You're providing the power to the propulsion system of your truck. Forget the battery for a second. We would like to just keep the state of charge of your battery. The only purpose of the battery is to get you onto this roadway, get you off this roadway. And so as you're driving, the electrified roadway is providing you the power to move your vehicle and to provide the auxiliaries to your, whatever you need within your vehicle. But the battery's in some ways bypassed. You're sending the energy beyond it so that you don't need a large battery. That's the goal.
Purdue University is part of a consortium called Aspire. Several universities are involved, and so are industry partners like Cummins, all working together to overcome some of the challenges associated with vehicle charging. As Purdue was developing this project, Cressy says Cummins was paying attention.
We thought, we have been working on stationary wireless charging, and we saw that maybe for relatively low amount of money, we could become involved and repurpose one of those trucks for dynamic wireless power transfer. So we thought, this technology is interesting. We can get involved for not a whole lot of money. And, as you have both been talking, what are the biggest challenges in commercial vehicle electrification right now? 2 weeks ago, I was at ACT Expo out in Las Vegas conference, and it's a wonderful conference, all the new technologies, but the vehicle OEM executives were all lamenting the fact that market adoption of battery electric is just not taking off. And why is that? Well, you've pointed it out. Cost of the batteries, cost of the trucks, range of the trucks. Where's the charging infrastructure? Truckers have trouble finding a place to just park overnight. And where are they going to charge? Are they going to charge overnight? That's going to be difficult. Are we going to have fast megawatt charging? Wired? Maybe. Probably, but that a lot of grid electrification. So if you look at dynamic wireless power transfer, what NDOT and Purdue are trying to do here, they can solve a lot of those problems. Smaller battery, lower cost trucks, providing the charging infrastructure or power transfer technology or infrastructure, it seems like it can really lead the industry to develop a solution that'll work for the truckers.
Cressy called this project an incredible opportunity, but not one without question marks. It'll be done in phases, and each phase will take some time. Phase 1 is underway with construction of a test roadway beginning at U.S. Highway 231/52, just west of the Purdue campus in West Lafayette, Indiana.
In this initial quarter-mile section, it's taking an existing roadway. They've been milling channels to place the transmitter coils, and that's in process. And those coils are being manufactured, and we're proud of this. Cummins is a world leader. They're an Indiana company, but there's also Indiana companies involved throughout this process. So William, Charles, and White Construction, they're doing this roadway. The milling's continuing, and in the next month or so, coils will be placed in the roadway, and then we'll be waiting on the electronics to bring to the side of the roadway that provide the energy to the coils. And then we're hoping a Cummins generator will provide us with the power to support those tests.
Yeah, well, in parallel, we're working with Purdue to understand how we're going to integrate their receiver pad. So as Steve talked earlier, there's transmitters, coils in the roadway, and then there's a receiver pad on the truck. And that receiver pad is designed by Purdue. And then there's power electronics, which convert the AC power that's being transferred to DC, that the vehicle, either the batteries or the powertrain or the accessories can then use. So we're working right now with the Purdue researchers and integrating their components onto our truck. We're doing the design. There's obviously controls when you add this. How do you communicate between the two? The truck, at times may want 100 kilowatts of power transfer, and sometimes may want the maximum, which may be in excess of 200 kilowatts. So we're working through these details. And then near the end of this year, early next year, we'll physically do that integration on one of our battery electric demo trucks. And then about a year from now, you can show up in West Lafayette and see this testing in action.
As for those challenges, there are more than a few, but both Cressy and Pekarik are confident this will yield results.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think we'll get the technology down. I think the project will be successful from a technology standpoint. I worry about the cost. Can we truly get the cost? And can we have financing partners that understand the payback for this is in the 10, 15 year, 20 year time frame? But this technology will work in some manner. It will be rolled out commercially in certainly limited areas to obtain wide scale electrification, which may be 20% of the interstates, let's say, and you can have a battery to go in between. I think that's something I'm unsure. That's my worry. I think it has great potential, but can we get the cost down?
The part of that cost, of course, is providing the connections, the power to the roadway, right? So you have to supply the utility or this new entity. We're calling a public-private partnership, at least to start, which we'll call an electrified roadway. They have to get power from a utility and then put it to the roadway. They have to bill and all of those type of details. The billing part, I'm sure, they want to make money. That's not the issue. The issue is, where do you get the power from associated with this? Let's say it's 10 megawatt levels of power every mile. Okay, where are you going to get that from, especially in a power desert? Maybe this is between Indianapolis and Columbus, Ohio, on a major trucking roadway. Okay, what happens midway through there where you don't have large amounts of power? How do you get that there? That's going to be the big part of this, is that rollout. I think that's the big hurdle.
Since it's in its early stages, there's no telling where this project may be in the years to come. But if it is successful...
Well, I think John alluded to initially that it would likely be on select dedicated roadway sections, and our initial vision looking long term is this is consecutive over large swaths of the interstate system. That's not anytime soon. So my speculation is this would be placed on main thoroughfares, 100-mile sections, and dedicated vehicles over those sections consistently. As the technology matures, then it moves out from there, and you have larger swaths of the interstate system dedicated to this, and that may be 25 or 30 years from now.
It'll roll out in regions, maybe obviously heavy transportation regions. There'll still be overnight depot level charging. If you look at there are dedicated identified electric vehicle corridors that the federal government has said these are the corridors, and you just look at where truck traffic is predominant, and you can go after those. And some people, if we build it, some people will start using it and some people won't. And if those that start using it start to gain a competitive advantage because they don't have trouble finding charging stations, they're building the trucks, they're buying trucks with smaller batteries. And if it works, fleets are pretty smart. They'll gravitate to those solutions that work. Now, again, it's going to start off in regional haul, but pretty soon you'll have regional haul trucks that maybe aren't stopping for overnight charging, or they're able to easily run the slip seat where they don't have to stop and charge overnight. So I think if it's one of those, if we build it, they will come. I think that'll happen, but again, it'll happen, like Steve alluded to, in limited regions, and then it'll start to build out.
Time will tell how this project pans out, but Cressy said something will, and engineers are working to come up with the best solutions possible.
Some in the industry use the term for the next 15, 20 years, the messy middle on what our powertrains and what our trucks are going to be powered by. Is it going to be hydrogen? Is it going to be fuel cell? Is it going to be natural gas? Is it going to continue to be diesel? Are hybrids? And, Cummins is looking at all of that, because we know, again, over the next 15, 20 years, there has to be a wide variety of solutions. And then we'll see what can work cost effectively. And if we're successful at projects like this, well, then battery electric will be a lot more usable, productive, cost effective to the truckers. We can't have the truckers have to try to find a charging station, and now they're running low, and now they have to wait. I mean, again, you can think of the challenges to electrified trucking. We need to make it easy. Part of the problem is diesel is so incredible. People don't realize the phenomenal energy density, and we're trying to create solutions that compete against this, because trucking fleets and truckers don't want to change their operational model, nor should they radically. Small operational changes maybe, but how are we going to compete against that with the new technologies? And this dynamic wireless power transfer could be a way.
Our thanks to Steve Pekarik and John Cressy for their time and their work on this project. This was just a portion of our talk. For the entire conversation, we'll have it posted over on the Landline Media page on YouTube. We'll step out for a moment here, but there's more Landline Now right around the corner. Stick around.
Today's rising costs affect everyone. Replace your harmonic damper with a genuine VibraTech TVD viscous damper to prevent costly repairs and downtime. Keep your money in your pocket and your truck on the road with VibraTech TVD. Recommended replacement at 500,000 miles or 15,000 hours.
Ready to make more money? Use a better load board. For a limited time, get 50% off TruckStop Load Board Pro. Just go to truckstop.com/go and enter promo code READY2024 when you purchase Load Board Pro.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
Landline Now. Welcome back. Like tires, fuel, and an engine, insurance is one of those things you just have to have for your truck. But not all insurance is created equal. I'm here now with OOIDA's Trita Skywalker and Trista Roby to answer some questions. Hey, welcome to both of you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Well, glad to have you here. It's a new experience for me.
Yeah.
You know?
You get to see how much fun we are to record with.
I like that. I am always up for fun here. What is our main topic today? Let's kind of start there.
Well, it's a topic we've done before, but it's on supplemental towing and cleanup coverage, or towing and cleanup coverage that generally goes along with your physical damage. The reason we like to do this topic ever so often is just because of the mess that we see sometimes with these claims and the tow bills and how excessive they are. So,
yeah, and that's something actually that's coming up a lot in our coverage lately is, in fact, there was congressional testimony recently that Louis Pugh of OOIDA was in on, where a member of Congress said that he was aware, I believe, of a $78,000 tow bill.
I'm not surprised, yeah.
And that's why it's such a pressing topic to discuss this individual coverage.
And why we're bringing it back on the show again.
Yes.
Well, I want to talk a little bit. I mean, obviously we have that one example, but talk a little bit, if you would, about how bad some of these bills can get.
Well, I mean, I think that example is probably in line with a lot of our really big ones. Not only are you worried about towing, there's cleanup, especially, I mean, even cargo can be involved from the scene of an accident, and those bills can often be more than the actual damage to the truck itself, more than the damage to the actual cargo itself. And so that's why they rack up so quickly.
I believe one of the examples that I heard recently was several $1,000s for a heat and humidity charge because it was hot out.
Oh, wow.
I did hear about that recently, now that you mention it, because I thought, well, that's new.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Not new in a good way. Not new in a, it's the new spring fashion. No, this is not the new spring fashion.
Right.
Well, what kind of average size tow bills are we seeing right now? Because even those are serious.
They are. I'm not sure if I could really speak on what's average. I know we see a lot in the realm of $20,000 to $30,000. When you hear about the $80,000, $100,000 bills, I feel like those are kind of on the higher end of what we see. But at the end of the day, they're always high. I mean, even $20,000 and $30,000 is an excessive bill to have to pay, especially if your coverage only includes maybe $3,000 or $5,000 coverage. You're still stuck with several $1,000s.
Right.
Well, and I assume that certain types of loads can lead to higher costs for towing as well.
Oh, sure. And depending on the cleanup, that's a big part of it too. If you have your own authority and you have your own cargo coverage, physical damage coverage, if there's a spill with the load that you're hauling, yeah, some of it does cost quite a bit. Trista's giggling because she has a good example of this.
We've just heard some of the loads that you would not expect to be expensive for the cleanup are the most outrageous ones. Cheeto dust was one of our recent ones. And, think about when you're eating Cheetos and how they stick to everything. They end up on every piece of paper that you're touching. But if that is the entire load that's being carried, that was a huge cleanup bill.
Cheeto dust.
Yes.
They couldn't just lick their fingers like the rest of us do?
I had the same question.
Okay. Well, obviously that's a unique case, one hopefully we don't see every day.
Right.
But as a general matter, I mean, I don't remember years ago that $20,000 to $30,000 was a common tow bill. And obviously with these outrageous ones, there's a lot of things we could talk about that are driving that. But on these kind of more average or more common ones, what's driving the cost of those up?
The fact that there are no regulations right now, very little regulations on tow companies, and they can really just get by with doing whatever they want. I mean, I think that's the biggest driving factor.
Right. And I mean, some of it is warranted, and I don't want to talk like this is all completely unwarranted, because it is.
Or like they're all predators.
Correct. There are legitimate circumstances. If one of the high tow bills I think we saw was a load of cattle that there was an accident, and so the time and effort that it takes to clean up the result of that accident, or to clean up Cheeto dust, or, and let's not forget how risky it can be to hook up to a semi-truck and tow it. If they're on the side of the highway and the tow truck driver has to navigate traffic, and, it's a safety risk to try and move that equipment out of the way. So a lot of it is warranted and a lot of it is valid. But like you said, we haven't seen it this high in the past. It just continues to go up. It continues to be a problem. And some places are going to take advantage of the fact that there's no regulation.
Right.
Well, this is something that's typically regulated at the state level, not the federal level. Talk a little bit about this regulation. Are there places that are improving or that are good? Is it all kind of a bleak, horrifying landscape out there?
It's hard to navigate, really, because each state can do what they want. And I do think a lot of states are moving in a good direction. But there are also states that have actually almost put protections in for the tow company. I mean, I can think of one in particular that requires that towing be paid before the claim itself is paid. So, for example, if you have a $30,000 tow bill and a $40,000 truck, they require that tow company gets paid from the insurance claim first. So the $30,000 tow bill is going to get paid, and then you're left with the $10,000 for your $40,000 truck.
So this actually affects what you're paid for your own damage, for your own claim.
Correct.
Sometimes.
Depending on the state and that sort of thing. But yes, that is the part of it that's so hard to navigate, is that every state is just a little bit different. And while some of them are working in a good direction, I think there are also a lot of areas that need improvement, clearly, and states that have worked to actually protect the tow company.
I'm curious if we can kind of give people a sense here. Are there particular states that we can name that are bad, or particular regions of the country where this is a worse problem than it is elsewhere?
I mean, we can say that we generally see a lot of the higher bills in the Northeast. That seems to be, and I'm not saying they're the most predatory. I'm just saying that that's where we see a lot of the higher bills. I don't know if it's because we're talking about more highly populated areas or
less regulations,
right?
What it could be. But those are typically where we see our big ones come from.
Right.
Well, it's good at least we can nail it down that far. Something else that I think is worth mentioning here is you mentioned, of course, those states that require the tow bill to be paid first. In some cases, I know we have states where people can put liens on the equipment, that they can actually tie up your truck in this. Talk a little bit about that. I mean, how often does it happen? How does it happen? How do you get out of it?
Well, I don't know if I could answer all of that, like how you get, it's going to be a battle with the insurance company first and foremost. And hopefully whoever you have fighting on your behalf is going to, I know we've had situations where someone's looked over a tow bill and it kind of looks like maybe there's a double charge here and there for something. So hopefully your insurance company can come to some sort of an agreement with the tow lot. The problem with that, too, is the longer they tie up your truck, the longer they're holding on to it, they're probably still accruing storage fees, because you're not just talking about the cost to hook up to the equipment and tow it away. Now you've got storage fees for each day that the equipment's in the lot. That's going to continue to add up throughout all this, I would imagine. And and if you have a loan on the equipment, I don't know that your lender's going to be any help. They're just expecting you to keep making your payments.
Right.
So I think really that comes down to your insurance company and how much they're going to be able to help you out with that situation.
Yeah, the argument that your insurance company is going to be able to put up for you. But really what it comes down to is, do you have additional coverage available?
Exactly.
I mean, that's the bottom line. Do you have additional coverage available? Have you discussed that with your agent? And if you do have it, I mean, typically depending on how much you're looking at, number one, how much is built into your policy? That's going to be an important question for your agent. But number two, is there a supplemental additional coverage available? And you're looking at usually pretty cheap premiums for that additional coverage. If you're paying $5 or $10 a month to save yourself a $20,000 or $30,000 loss.
Or more.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that's really the bottom line, is what do you have available to help protect you and protect your insurance company even more, and keep them from having to put that fight up for you so that everybody's getting paid.
Yeah, they can only fight so much if you don't have the right kind of coverage. Their hands are going to be kind of tied at a certain point. So I'm sure you could be at risk of losing your equipment, having to sign it over to the tow lot, because most people don't have $15,000 or $20,000 to shell out of pocket.
And especially if your policy wording specifically states that if there's a total loss, we'll only pay $3,000 toward a tow bill. I mean, that's very black and white. And so that's why these are such important questions. I say it, I think, every time, but talk to your agent.
Yeah.
Ask your agent. Have a discussion with your agent.
And that's an important point to stress. And I have heard you stress that before, that you've got to be in communication. These people are your partner in this situation.
Right. And they don't want to see, I mean, your insurance company, regardless of who it is, doesn't want to see any harm to you. I mean, they want to protect you as much as you want to protect yourself.
Right.
And that's their job.
Right.
That's their job. I'm kind of curious. We've talked a little bit about cleanup and that type of thing. What are some of the things that are not likely to be covered in terms of towing coverage, and why?
I think that's going to go back to the discussion with your agent, seeing what the policy excludes, what's covered, what's not covered. EPA is a huge factor. Kind of even going back to the Cheeto dust situation, that's not a hazardous material, but there's still a level of having to get the earth back to how it was prior to the claim. It's still an environmental issue. If you're leased onto a company, chances are that your motor carrier is going to have that coverage. So maybe they're responsible for the trailer and the cleanup of the load or the spill of the load. You're still going to be responsible for your truck. And I don't know that I've ever seen where an insurance company says, no, we're not going to have that cleaned up. Like it's going to have to be cleaned up.
Right.
Regardless of what the load is, what the contents are, or the spill.
Or whose responsibility it is.
Right.
It has to be done.
It's going to get cleaned up, and then the argument will ensue, who's paying for this? And, that's really what it comes down to is, are you responsible? Is your motor carrier responsible? Is everyone covered properly? Those are the most important factors to check out, because the load's always going to get cleaned up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We've just got a few seconds left. Is there anything else we need to get out to people about this?
I think just emphasizing again the importance of knowing how much coverage you have, checking to see what the cost is. Typically, you need to check and see if it's something that you can add later in the policy if you're trying to bind coverage in the least cost possible. Check and see if that coverage can be added.
And if there's a time frame on when it can be added or that sort of thing.
Do you have to wait for renewal?
Yeah. So be sure that you're asking those kinds of questions too if you're trying to save money up front and find out when it can and can't be added, that sort of thing.
Okay. Well, ladies, thank you very much for the information. We certainly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks again for having us.
We'll be back in just a moment. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Penske owns and operates some of the best-maintained vehicles on the planet. Our used trucks come with a 5-year maintenance report and pre-sale inspection. So if you're in the market for a top-quality pre-owned truck, look no further. Search our inventory today at PenskeUsedTrucks.com.
Control your toll costs and eliminate tolling headaches with Prepass Tolls. Prepass Tolls means toll volume discounts. Just one invoice for all tolls and fewer violations. Call 877-878-5970 or go to prepass.com.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Landline Now, welcome back. There are a number of critical questions you need to answer in order to run a successful trucking business. Among the most important of those questions are, where's the freight going to be, and how much is it going to pay? Today, Landline Now news anchor Scott Thompson will bring us answers to both of those important questions, with a look at this week's freight markets with the folks from DAT. Here's Scott now with a report.
Thanks, Mark, as we say hello to Stephen Pettit of DAT. Stephen, how you doing?
Hey, man, I'm great. Good to hear your voice.
Good to have you on, as always. We always appreciate talking to you. Looking at the market here, we've kind of been muddling along, I think, through the dog days of summer on the spot market. No surprise there, really, since this is usually a slow time. But I'll ask you, where are we at right now with demand and rates and the like, as you see it on the data board right there?
Yeah, I'll give you a little bit of a recap. Hopefully, probably not a lot of breaking news here. I mean, there were 1.7 million loads on the DAT1 load board last week. That's virtually unchanged from the previous week. It's about 16% fewer loads than the same time last year. The number of van load posts a little lower compared to the previous week, and reefer posts were down about 6%. After 4 straight weeks of declines, flatbed posts actually increased about 8%, so that's good news. Total number of trucks on the network fell 5% last week, and it's down 20% compared to last year. And in fact, capacity is as tight as it's been on a year-over-year basis since 2017. So no dramatic swings in terms of available loads. About the same. Trucks down 5%. What does that do for spot rates? The answer is not a lot, actually. So you're looking just at August. So far this month, vans averaging $202 a mile. Reefers, $240 a mile. Flatbed loads, $244 a mile. Now, these are national average rates from RateView. That's DAT's database of truckload invoice data. These rates are based on actual transactions. It's not the broker's asking price in the load board. You know, national averages, they're fine benchmarks and everything, but every load, every lane is different. Ultimately, the rate that matters is the one that you negotiate with the broker. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, a great reminder there, especially as we continue to kind of scrape along the bottom here. We are looking ahead to better days. I keep being promised that they're coming, and I know that they are. But as we look ahead to the weeks to come here and start looking toward the holiday season, what factors do you kind of see playing a role with regard to rates?
Yeah, so there are a couple things in the short term, right? Next week, CVSA Brake Safety Week. This is that week-long CVSA inspection campaign. It'll focus on brakes. An event like Brake Safety Week or Road Check, it can lead to fewer trucks on the load board. Truckers like to take time off to avoid the potential exposure and delays. Tighter capacity can lead to higher rates. It can also lead to better negotiating power for the carrier, especially on routes where there's a lot of enforcement activity. Second thing I'd watch is the weather. You know, the busiest part of hurricane season typically starts in mid-August and it peaks in mid-September. So major weather events, it can disrupt supply chains, lead to increased volumes on the load board in regional situations. We saw this just last week when the remnants of Hurricane Debby moved through the mid-Atlantic area, helped drive up demand for reefer trucks in Maryland and in Delaware. Third factor to watch, kind of in the short term, on Monday this week, the union representing Canadian Pacific Kansas City Railroad workers, they served a 72-hour strike notice. So CN They said that they intend to lock out workers unless there's a new labor agreement in place. We haven't seen much impact from the threat of a rail strike on truckload markets. Bulk shipments that go by rail don't always translate well to trucks, but it's something worth watching. The bigger issue on the labor front is a potential strike at East Coast and Gulf Coast ports. Probably have a bigger impact on truckers. International Longshoremen Association that represents workers at ports from Boston to Houston, they're threatening to strike when its contract expires on September 30th. So they're in a dispute over terminal automation. A 1-week strike at those ports starting on October 1st, it's estimated it might take until mid-November to work through. A 2-week strike could create a backlog into next year. So all of these things are happening, right, as retail freight and produce start to move ahead of that Labor Day holiday. I think as an owner-operator on the spot market, I'm keeping an eye on how Brake Safety Week will affect me next week. I'm watching the weather, and I'm keeping an eye on the ports. Any event that disrupts supply chains can put you in a better position when you're negotiating a spot rate.
Yeah, that's a great point. Let's hone in on the Labor Day holiday weekend, as you kind of mentioned it there. It's fast approaching. In terms of owner-operators specifically, what can they expect in terms of van freight activity in the next week or so?
So when we talk about spot van freight in mid-August, we're talking about groceries for Labor Day, and we're talking about holiday-related retail goods. So retailers, they have responded to those labor issues at the East Coast and Gulf Coast ports by importing more cargo through West Coast ports. National Retail Federation said the West Coast share of containers coming into the U.S. is about 50% for the first time in over 3 years. The ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, they account for about 1/3 of all U.S. container imports. They had their strongest month ever in July, just shy of the all-time high reached in May 2021. A lot of the retail freight coming through LA and Long Beach that gets warehoused in Ontario, that's in that Inland Empire region, about 70 miles east of Los Angeles. It's the country's largest and perhaps the most important market for warehousing and distribution centers. Most van load volume from Ontario goes to Phoenix or Stockton. Those are both large warehouse distribution markets in their own right. Right now, the average spot rate from Ontario to Phoenix is about $3.44 a mile. Ontario-Stockton averages $2.89 a mile. Both rates are about the same as they were this time last year, which tells me that surge of goods coming into the ports really has yet to be felt in the spot market and on the highways out of Southern California. It just has not translated to more truckload demand. Not yet, anyway.
Yeah. We're always looking for hot lanes, hot markets, as it were. I want to hone our focus a bit, though, if we could, Stephen, and focus on the reefer market specifically. With reefer, what areas are standing out to you right now?
So just looking generally at the reefer market, total number of reefer loads decreased 6% week over week. Truck count fell 5%. Producers have really been affected by heat and weather, especially in California and the Southwest. They get those persistent high heat coming in. It compresses the window for moving fresh produce out of the fields, and as a result, productivity suffers. It means just fewer trucks per day moving out of those growing areas. Looking ahead, late August starts this seasonal shift for produce haulers as harvests move north. Onion and potato growers in the Pacific Northwest will start shipping this week. This is in addition to apples and sweet cherries and pears and other produce grown in the Yakima Valley of Washington State. That's near where I-90 and I-82 connect. Spot reefer rates from Yakima Valley typically build from now through November. Popular lane, Yakima to LA, averaged $2.02 a mile last week. That's almost equal to the August average last year. That lane's a little more than 1,000 miles. In the coming weeks, we'll see markets like Yakima Valley, Twin Falls, Idaho, Pendleton, Oregon, and then Michigan, Wisconsin, New York. They'll start to open up with opportunities to find freight like apples and potatoes and onions, which have a reasonably long shipping season. And then after that, of course, the focus will shift to imports in southern markets like Nogales, Arizona, McAllen, Texas in a few months. Rates there right now, they'll dip through September and then start to move up again in October and November as strawberries and melons, limes, peppers, and other produce start to come across the border.
And Stephen, we don't have a whole lot of time here, probably about 30 seconds or so, but I wanted to ask you, with fall right around the corner, the holidays right around the corner, a little bit of planning goes a long way. What can or should folks be doing right now to position themselves for profitability moving forward?
Yeah, so it's a good time for housekeeping, right? Planning, maintenance, reaching out to brokers about their priorities in 2025 and changes to their onboarding requirements. Now is a good time to review your FMCSA profile data, make sure it's up to date. You're required to do this every 2 years. I wouldn't wait. Keeping your FMCSA information current, it makes it easier for brokers to verify who you are so you can get on board and book loads faster. You can also reduce the risk of fraud and identity theft when you're doing that. So check that FMCSA profile, make sure it's correct. It's something to do next week while you're sitting around waiting for your brake inspection.
Stephen, always a pleasure. DAT.com is a place to go for more information, and we'll talk to you soon.
You bet, man. Thanks so much.
Our thanks to Stephen Pettit of DAT. Mark, back to you.
Thanks, Scott. That's our program for today. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Capital Reman is your leading source for quality remanufactured engines and components. Capital Reman stands ready to serve all OOIDA members to help reduce costly engine repairs or replacement. Visit capitalreman.com today and use code OOIDA10 to save.
ULSD is hurting your engine. Fight back with Howe's Diesel Defender. Get the most powerful cleaning and maximum lubricity to protect and extend the life of your entire system. At a guaranteed increase in fuel economy, and you can't go wrong with Howe's.
Dispatch, I picked up that load of steel, so I'm ready to roll.
Sounds good. Remember, we're getting paid by weight, so make sure to use a CAT scale.
I wouldn't weigh anywhere else.
Forget-miss accuracy when you're truck on a CAT scale.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
chrome,
and I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us!
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.